Hi, welcome to my video on the transformations of the horizontal and vertical stretch on y equals root x, which is the square root function. The horizontal stretch on y equals root x, and the equation that we have is y equals square root of a times x, and the mapping rule is set of xy with an arrow, and it's the reciprocal of, so a times x, then the mapping rule has 1 over this number times x, y. Notice the y's are not changed. So if we have the equation y equals root x, which is the basic equation of the square root, we have a 0, 1, 4, and 9. Square root of 0 is 0. Square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 9 is 3. And again, the 0, 0, 1, 1, 4, 2, 9, 3. And right there. And again, this is the graph of the basic square root function. There it is right there. And what happens with this, so let's take an example of y equals the root of 2x. So 2x, so we're saying that a is 2. So what happens? To get the same values, we put 0 in. We put 0 in here, we get 2 times 0 is 0, and square root of 0 is 0. But to get a 1, I have to put a half in. So 2 times 1/2 will give me the square root of 2 times a half is the square root of 1, which is 1. So notice I have a half. Now I have to put a 2 in. So 2 times 2 will give me a 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. And now I have to put in half of the 9, 9 over 2. So let me explain. If we put a 2 in for x, the square root of 4 will give me the 2. If we put 2 times 9 over 2, 9, the 2's cancel. I get the square root of 9, which is 3. So I have to put 2x, I have to put half this number in order for this to come out to be a 0, a 1, a 2, and a 3. And another way to look at that is to do this. And we could say 2x equals 0, divide by 2, and x is 0. So we put a 0 in. If we say 2x equals 1, which is what this is right here, then divide by 2, so we get x is a half. So we put a half in. If we put 4 in, 2x equals 4. We want a 4. 2x equals 4, divide by 2, and x equals 2. So notice we put 2 in, we'll get a 4. So the square root of 4 is 2. And if we go right here, we got a 9. So if we say 2x equals 9, divide by 2, 2's cancel, I get 9 over 2. So when we put 9 over 2 in the equation, 2 times 9 over 2 gives me the root of 9, which is a 3. So notice we're taking half of these values in order for this to come out to give me the same y values as this. So the mapping rule is we got x comma y. So since that a is 2, this is a half x, 1 over a, 1 over 2. So the mapping rule, we're taking the half of the x values. So you take half of these basic values here, put them in here, and that'll come out to give you the same y's. So there's the mapping rule. So 2a is a half, reciprocal. And the graph is 0, 0. X is a half, y is 1, x is a half. So that's, notice now 1, 2, there's a half spaces in between. So x is a half, y is 1. X is 2, x is 2, y is 2. X is 9 over 2 is 4.5. 4.5 is right here. Will give me a 3. So notice the x values that they're half the distance. Very similar on the graph, but the x values are half of what they are in the basic. So instead of a 1, you get a half. Instead of 4, you get a 2, etc., etc. Instead of a 9, you get a 9 over 2 or 4.5. And the range of the basic one, the domain of the basic one, x is greater than 0. Range is y is greater than 0. And with this horizontal stretch, there's no difference. The domain, the x's are still greater than or equal to 0. And the y's are still greater than or equal to 0. So there's no change on the domain and range. Let's try one more. Notice this time we have y equals, let's go with y equals the root of 4x. So we have a 4x, so that means a is 4. So that means the mapping rule has 1 over 4x y. It's 1/4. So if we have 1/4, if we put a 0 in here, put a 0 in, we get 1/4 of 0 is 0. If we put a 1 in here, so the table of values is what I'm going by, this table. So when I put 1 in, 1/4 times 1 gives me 1/4. When I put a 4 in here gives me a 1. When I put a 9 in, there's the 9. When I put a 9 here, 1/4 of 9 is 9 over 4. So when I take these values now and plug in to this equation, 4 times 0 is a 0. 4 times 1/4 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. Put a 1 in. 4 times 1 is 4. Square root of 4 is 2. When you put a 9 over 4 in the place of x, 4 times 9 over 4, 4 is cancelled. I get a 9. Square root of 9 is 3. So these are the values of x that will give you the same values of y in this basic graph. And notice I got the distance between 1, 2, and 3 all split into 4 parts. So 0 gives me a 0. 1/4 gives me a 1. So 1/4 is right there because that's a half. 3/4 is 1. 1/4 gives me a 1. And a 1 will give me a 2. When x is 1, y is 2. When x is 9 over 4, that's 2 and 1/4. 2 and 1/4 is right here. Y is 3. So the y's didn't change, but the x's are 1/4 of what they were before. The y's. So the domain didn't change. Still great. X is greater than 0, equal to 0. And the y is still the same. Y is greater than or equal to 0. But the horizontal stretch, you got to be careful with the horizontal stretch because it's the reciprocal of the a value, the number that's in the front. Now let's look at the vertical stretch on y equals root x. And the vertical stretch is a times root x is multiplied by. And the mapping rule for the vertical stretch is ay. So notice it's a times this value, so it's ay. No hassles here. The horizontal stretch is where you got to do the reciprocal. But the vertical stretch, you just multiply because it's times. So let's look at y equals root x, which is the equation. And again, we got a 0, 1, 4, 9. So that's 0, 1, 2, 3 that we have memorized. And the graph is 0, 0, 1, 1, 4, 2, 9, 3. 9, 3. And again, you get used to trying this and recognizing it. There it is. But what happens when you make it a times? So now it's, if you go 2 root x, so a in this case is 2, so it's 2 times the root of x. So notice the x's never changed. So if you put a 0, 1, 4, 9, because it's x, the x's never changed. But if you take a 0 and plug in this equation, you get a 0. 2 times 0 is 0. If you take a 1 and sub in, root of 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. You put a 4 in, square root of 4 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. You put a 9 in, x is 9. Square root of 9 is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So notice 3 becomes, you're doubling. The y values are doubling because it's 2 times whatever this value is. So the y values are being doubled. So the vertical stretch is gone. Vertical is the y. And so the mapping rule is x comma y. So that means the x is not changed, but it's a 2y. The x never changed, but the a value is multiplied 2 times y because it's twice as high. So 0, 0. 1 gives you a 2. 4 gives you a 4. 4 is a 4. And 9 gives me a 6. 6 is right up here. And notice the y values are twice as high as what they are here. Instead of 1, you get a 2. Instead of 2, you have a 4. Instead of 3, you have a 9. But the x has never changed. And the domain of the basic is x is greater than or equal to 0. Range is y is greater than or equal to 0. And the domain here is x, but the x's are still the same. And the y range is still the same. Didn't change. And let's look at another equation. Let's look at y equals 3 root x. So what happens if you put 0? Notice in the mapping rule now we have x comma y, so that's a 3 times root x, so that's an x, so that's 3y. So you're multiplying the square root of this number, whatever x is, multiplying by 3, so that's 3 times the y value. So 1, 4, and 9. There's no change in the x when the 3 times this root. And so when you put a 0 in, what will happen? You get a 0, so 3 times 0 is 0. When you put a 1 in, you get a 1. 3 times 1 is 3. And when you put 4 in, you get a 2. 3 times 2 is 6. When you put a 9 in, you get a root of 9 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. So notice, this is the basic y values. So these y values here are 3 times higher. 3, 9, 2, 6. 3 times 1, 3. 3 times 1. So the y values are 3 times higher. 3 times the y value of the basic table. So that means that 0, 0. 1 gives you a 3. 4 gives you a 6. That's 3, 4, 5, 6. And a 9 gives you a 9. So 9, go 9 up. Let's say 9 is right there. And so they'll notice the y values are tripled 3 times. Domain is x is greater than or equal to 0. Range is y greater than or equal to 0. So a vertical stretch is the number, whatever is in the 2 times, so it's 2 times y. The horizontal is the one where you got to do the reciprocal. Just be careful. That brings us to the end of this video. If you like my video, click the like button, subscribe button, and notification bell. Visit my math website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. And that's the content on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. Thank you very much for viewing my video. Bye-bye.